Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones.
Wait, we're going on tour?
We're delivering and setting up customers' phones. It's not a tour.
Not with that attitude.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com. Dreaming of getting the all-new iPhone 17 Pro designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever?
Then stay in bed and let a Boost Mobile expert deliver and set it up for you.
Oh, actually, they will have to get up and open the door.
Oh, right.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com. Terms apply.
Jag pratade med Mikael. Jag är övertygad om att han kan få det finansierad. Vi ska filma i vårt hus.
Huset vårt?
Ja. Perfekt, ja.
Jag ska inte vara med på det här.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another new episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin-Lundberg, and I'm here with Vanessa Mendel, my right hand. Vanessa, this is a truly epic day for us. I'm on the East Coast, trapped in a blizzard, and you are on the West Coast, manning set for our new movie, Tumor. We're bi-coastal right now.
It's a big day.
It's a big day.
Yeah, we're really doing
dramas, all the highs and lows. The one thing we know for certain is nothing is certain. But we're about to dive into Sentimental Value, which is one of my favorite films of the year. And we are going to interview the editor, Olivier Bougcoutet. I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyways, this guy is truly brilliant. And, you know, in the conversation with him, Vanessa, I realized how much more complex and emotional I was about the movie than I realized, which is like the stuff of great conversation. And he brought out so many like incredible things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these generally, when Joaquin makes these movies, they kind of sit with you for a really long time, and you don't even realize the nuances that have stuck with you. And these are the kinds of movies you go back to and watch a million times and learn something new. And so I'm very excited to hear about the editing experience, because I'm sure that was definitely part of it.
Yes, let's get going.
Let's do it.
Olivier Bougcoutet, I'm so excited to be interviewing you today about Sentimental Value, which is one of my favorite films of the year. I feel so lucky to be speaking to you. The process of talking to an editor is so incredibly rewarding because you really are just observing all the content come in. And obviously the relationship you have with the filmmaker is so unique, especially for the great films. It's kind of like your brother in arms, and you go into this dark hole together and figure out what the film really is. And so I really just want to talk about the process of this film and the brotherhood that you have with Joachim. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about, you know, yourself, but how you came to work with him, because I saw that you also edited The Worst Person in the World, which was another film that I absolutely adored. So talk to me about coming to this and coming to him and how you guys formed this partnership, which has like obviously been so successful.
I mean, we've known each other for 30 years. Joachim is half Danish, half Norwegian. I'm Danish. And we met in Denmark in a small film school, which doesn't really count as a film school, but it's like a prep school, you would say. And then a couple of years later, we both applied and got into the National Film and Television School in London and started together at the end of the 90s.
So you were children together. I mean, literally very young.
Yeah. If you call a baby a 25-year-old baby, then yes.
I consider that a baby still.
And then we did the 3 years together at the NFTS. We stayed in a house together the first couple of years, and just student life. And we did the second year film, graduation film. Then we graduated, and we did a couple of commercials together, but Joachim didn't really go down that path.
Meaning he was directing and you were editing? Like, was that always the dynamic?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah. He was in the. I was in the editing department, of the NHS, and he was in it's divided into departments. Once you are into the editing department, you're not changing unless you quit the school. So I graduated as an editor, and he graduated as a director.
And were you guys best, like very, very close mates as you applied out to the school in London, or did that friendship develop over the time and you happened to both go there?
Definitely developed as we were in the school and lived together, because we sort of knew each other before. As I said, we went to that small film school in Denmark just before we started at the NFTS, but we didn't work together, and we only spoke about films here and there. And we didn't even coordinate to apply for the NFTS, but it was obvious coming from Denmark, both of us, or Norway and Denmark, that we would live together. And as you don't have much money as students, we were like 4 guys in a house in Wembley. And eating a lot of pasta bolognese.
And did you find when you went to school together in London that you were kind of drawn to the same types of material,
Yes.
same kind of film? Like, what was it? Like, what were the early things that sort of inspired you guys?
We were very inspired by what you would call European art house. So we were watching a lot of French films, Italian films, Antonioni, French New Wave, Godard, Truffaut, Alain Resnais, but also English films, Nicholas Roeg. And of course, we were also, and I hope it still shows, we were very inspired by American films of the 70s, which were very character-driven films of The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, Kramer versus Kramer, Deer Hunter, all these wonderful films of the 70s. And we quite quickly bonded over the same cinema and the same approach to cinema. He introduced me to Tarkovsky, the Russian director Tarkovsky, and we quite quickly found out that we shared the same interest in film, and we loved strong character dramas like the American cinema of the 70s, but we also loved the playfulness of the European art house. And I still love Godard. I just watched Linklater's film Nouvelle Vague that came out. I was just like, how can I love the film so much? And Eskil, the co-writer of this, he just said, you're watching a film about a director that no one knows. I said, I don't care. I love it. And I love it because the playfulness of wanting to tell films in a different way than just the chronological, classical, scene by scene way, that desire we shared a lot. And we're maybe even a little bit in opposition to the English film tradition. Not that I have anything negative to say about London or the NFTS. I'm super happy that I went there. But maybe also being a little bit young and thinking like, they don't know what they're talking about. So we were watching Tarkovsky and Alain Resnais, and were very inspired by that, and try to figure out how can we tell films that are, on one hand, because none of us just wants to make experimental films that are completely detached from strong psychological character. So it's like a two-legged animal, we want the strong character, drama, psychological stories that are true, and as you can see in Sentimental Value, but at the same time, we want to tell it in a funny way, throw things up in the air, make montages, use voiceover, maybe write a text, put in different formats, black and white, color. Those were the things that brought us together.
In just watching the movie, I thought the opening was so incredibly bold. And I thought when you said playful, I thought you meant just playful in terms of humor, like levity, because that opening with Renata is so devastating and like stressful, but also absurd and hilarious. And I thought it was such a brilliant way to open the film, particularly considering it is a drama, it is quite dramatic. And tonally, I just thought that was like so bold. But I love the way you're talking about editing and like visuals outside of the box, like not just linearly. I think that's like so exciting.
Yeah.
And so were your projects together, or your editorial and his direction, was it always like that? Was that the way you guys always approached your films together, as just sort of thinking non-linearly or less linearly?
I think that if you ever got to see, I don't know where, but if you saw the second year film that we did together and the graduation film,
I haven't.
they are they are very radical. At least that's what we thought. Maybe if I watch it now, they aren't that, but that's what stayed in my mind for 25 years.
Yeah.
But we tried to really play with inner thoughts, external observation. Did this happen? Did it not happen? Was this a dream? Is this reality? Is the voiceover, where is it coming from? It's coming from somebody who's thinking something. We were trying to really play around. And if you see those first two films, you completely understand the first feature film, Reprise, that we did in 2005, because it tries to use all those cinematic ways of telling stories in a different way.
We could talk about each of those films because I feel like they probably are like another step in your relationship, in your development. But, from an American's perspective, I feel like The Worst Person in the World was like truly a film that like broke through, at least domestically over here. And, we'll get to Sentimental because I feel like it's like such a brilliant follow-up to that film. But tell me a little bit about The Worst Person in the World and why you think that was the film that like penetrated so effectively so many international audiences and American audiences. Like, what was that process? And do you remember how that came together?
I can't tell you exactly why, but people ask me the same question with Sentimental Value. Why do you think it resonates so well in an American audience and got so many nominations? And there's much more clever people than me that could make those analyses probably better than I do. But at least for my part, I think that it is connected to the fact that both of these films in each their ways are personal psychological dramas about people and feelings and family entanglements that you can relate to. And as I said before, it's a tradition that has been very, very strong in the US cinema, very strong in the 70s, strong in the 80s, debatable in the 90s. But then maybe, unfortunately, American cinema has forgotten a little bit about it, or put it on the shelf a little bit and down prioritized it and up prioritized very
event-driven films.
Yes, blockbuster films and big concept Avengers one after the other. And that has maybe taken the American cinema. Of course, there's a lot of things happening in American cinema, and I don't want to talk American cinema down because I love it. But it has maybe put too much money and focus, for my personal taste, in films that are less interested in character. Maybe that's why a film like this suddenly resonates. It brings out you can still make cinema that has to do with family problems and hard feelings and emotional states in people that resonates.
I would say like the words that spring to mind about this movie, and we'll now really focus and dig in on its Sentimental, is that it feels like such a tapestry of proper characters. Like every character in that movie has their own life, and and it feels like each of those lives have been given as much thought as the leads, as Renata's and Stellan's. And I feel like the sister, and I was reading about like how you guys cast the sister, and that was like a bit of a difficult thing to achieve. But she's got like as complex a life as the leads in the film, and Elle Fanning has all her other things going on, and that's part of her journey of leaving the film within the film, right? And I just felt like, oh my gosh, this filmmaker just cares about every single character in this tapestry, and wants to fill every single character out. And because of that, there's never any like downtime. Like you're as excited to go from one scene as this scene, because you want to know where the emotional life of each character is going.
I mean, that's what the film is. That's all we have in the film. So I'm very happy that you say that, because this is just characters unfolding their psychological problems. and because we don't have an outer suspense structure or anything else that drives the film. It's only the changes, the development, the thoughts, the way that they speak to each other, every dialogue scene, and carefully weighing every word and every look and every cut on a gold scale to make sure that the right temperature is moving the film forward and keeping the audience engaged in each character and gives it a forward narrative momentum that will keep you engaged in the overall story as well.
I think that everyone here wants to know, there hasn't been a feature film since Les Deal 15 years ago. Will we see another feature film from Gustav Borg?
Well, I hope so.
Here at Blue Apron, we know exactly how hectic school nights can be. That's why we created Assemble and Bake. Delicious one-pan meals that make family dinner simple. Just assemble the pre-chopped ingredients and put the pan in the oven to bake. Then you're free to help out with that last-minute diorama. Shop Assemble and Bake at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Pluto TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
This is the mindset.
Like Joe Dirt, Pixels, Survivor, and SpongeBob SquarePants.
Free. This is the mindset.
You're welcome.
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
I kind of want to segue into the editing process because I had read that the initial cut of the film, first of all, you are juggling so many characters and storylines and timelines that it was very long, 3.5 hours. Is that right?
Yeah, but that's not the. For me, that's not too long. It's better to cut a 3.5 hour movie down to 2 hours than trying to extend a 1 hour movie to 2 hours. so you're, as an editor, it's a gift that you have more scenes than the ones that actually, and again, that will end up in the film, and it's very normal. It's also just the fact that every scene has every word and every beginning and every ending. People are entering every room and exiting every room, and if you had that in the film, people would fall asleep before they get to the end of it. So it's also 3.5 hours is not representative of a perfect film. It's just representative of, it just shows that every scene cut together in scene order with all entries and exits make it 3.5 hour long. But the big challenge in this film compared to Worst Person in the World is exactly as you pointed out yourself, that it's a multi-character drama, that you constantly have to try to find out where each character is, and have you given enough information to be interested in the drama, and have you given just about enough so that you are still interested in moving to the next part. And that's the constant balance. And I don't know what I can't compare to Worst Person in the World. That's much easier because it's just one character that you're following all the time. And I can't give you the exact recipe of how to do it, but because that's the cutting the film as it is intended in the script, realizing that many things have changed also. When I restructure scenes in a film like that, it's not because the script is bad in any way. It's because there has been many layers of interpretation since the script was written. There's a director that has looked at the scene slightly different. There's actors that has read the script and are emphasizing different parts in the scenes now. There's a secondary role like the sister that suddenly takes a lot of space because she's much stronger. The scene of the two sisters when they're reading the script, she was supposed to be, the sister Agnes was supposed to be much less of a character, and Nora was supposed to take the scene much more. But watching her play and breaking down when she sees her sister mirroring the feelings that are coming out of her suddenly made her a much bigger character in the scene, which was maybe not written like that. Not, of course, it was written like that in the script, but maybe the emphasis on her was not as big as it came out in the edit. So many things changes from the script stage until the final edit.
By the way, I'm getting emotional just as you described that scene, like, because that was a truly emotional scene to watch, to have that come in dailies, was that completely unexpected for you? Did you not anticipate that sort of performance?
I had never worked with Agnes before, the little sister. This is the first time that she is in Joachim's film. I sort of knew, I sort of knew that Renate was going to be good, but I didn't know the sister. And I remember I was texting Joachim every time I cut a scene with the sister and said, "What is this? She's amazing." I was sending hearts to Joachim and saying, "Where did you find her? Where is she from? She's amazing. She's taken all the space."
Oh my God.
She's so amazing. But that's Joachim's unique talent as well. Casting and to bring out the best in the actors like this that have been doing other things before, but has gone completely under the radar until he like finds them and makes them shine and perform the way they do.
Have you observed him as he directs? Like, do you ever come to set and sort of observe, or do you just sort of stay and receive the material and sort of interact with him that way?
I don't mind going to the set sometimes. It's not that I have like a dogma. I don't want to see the set at all because it's going to ruin everything.
Yeah.
But they often shoot in a different country that I am in anyway. So this film, they shot it completely in Oslo and I'm sitting in Copenhagen, 600 kilometers away. So I don't go to set. But the first films that we did, I was in Norway from the first day. And then I went to set. We did a film, Louder Than Bombs, that was shot mostly outside of New York. There I came to set many times. So I don't have a rule that I don't want to go. I mean, I'm over the stage of it being super excited to be on a set, but I'll go to meet them.
I only inquire because, you know, part of the theme of Sentimental Value is a director who has had a lot of experience sort of going back into the fray. And I was just curious if the art imitated the life, like if the approach of Stellan to that character and the way that they rehearsed and the way they interacted was at all similar to the way that Joachim works. And I just wondered if you had any insight into that or if that was part of the writing process.
I wouldn't be able to compare them because I don't really know how Stellan, Gustav's character in the film, is actually working as a director. There's only that one scene. He looks quite traditional, but I know that Joachim, you probably have to speak to him about it more. But I even said this in a interview a couple of days ago in Berlin. I said, you can rule by fear, you can rule by love, and Joachim always ruled by love. And Joachim will come to you all the time, and he will hold an actor's shoulder or my shoulder, and he will say to the other people, "I would never be able to make this film without this guy." So everybody thinks like, oh, he cannot make a film without me. That's great. And it's not just a trick. That's the way he is. He's a very warm person, and that brings the best out in you, or at least you go very far distance with him when you know that he appreciates and loves the work that you're doing, rather than a director that's beating you on your head saying this is not good enough. You got to shape up.
Circling back to this cutting down a 3.5 hour film to 2 hours, I think that's probably why you're a genius at what you do. That doesn't scare you. But to me, that feels like, well, that's a whole other film that you've cut out of the film. And I would just love to dig into that a little bit more and understand, like, what are some of the choices that you remember, and what are the parts that you feel like inherently just need to be perhaps squeezed down a little bit, or how do you cut an entire film's worth of material out of the film you're editing?
When we watched the first version of, for instance, the part in France where Gustav goes to the film festival and meets Elle Fanning, that whole part of the film in the first cut was 26 minutes.
Okay.
So just watching that intuitively, I would feel, if I go to a screening anywhere in anybody else's film, I would say 26 minutes to stay away from the main protagonist. That's pretty long time. So intuitively, just watching the 26 minutes, we felt immediately this has to go down by 10 minutes. Of course, the scenes weren't trimmed to the bone at that stage, so probably some minutes could go by just trimming them better. But something had to disappear. A block had to disappear in the French section for it to go down to 16 minutes, and not just be the 26 minutes squeezed into 16 and everything would just feel rushed and not interesting. And I'll tell you what was cut out in a second, because out of those 4 characters in the multi-character drama, I often say as a joke, it becomes almost like a zero-sum game. If you add something to one of the characters, you will take away from the other character because you can only have certain amount of film conflicts in your head when you're watching the film. The character that was taken the most out of to make was Elle Fanning's character. Not because of Elle Fanning's acting at all, because she's an amazing actress, but because of the character in the film. And the things that were taken out were, let's say, the things that enlarged her character a bit more. There was a whole section that explained her motivation as why she wanted to work with a Norwegian director. She had come from a blockbuster world. She didn't like that anymore. Then she was doing an indie film that wasn't really hitting well. And now she was sort of, what am I going to do? And boom, she meets Gustav in France. And then later in the film, there will also be more details about her hesitation and problems about leaving the project. And those details, they're wonderful. And they're wonderful to make her character bigger and fuller. But in the zero-sum game, it took away from the triangle between the two sisters and the father. So that's the part that had to go down. And the 10 minutes that disappeared out of the French section were about Elle Fanning's character and the setup of her character.
Was it about reducing each scene to get to the crux of, because everything you just said, I understood. Everything you said about the blockbuster and the indie film that wasn't hitting and the feelings of ultimately wanting to leave, I gathered all of that. So was it lifting little pieces or was it a wholehearted lift of a couple scenes?
Both, but mainly a big block that's taken out, because you would, in the script that is now out, that you can read, Eskil and Joachim are signing at the book signings everywhere. It's actually quite interesting. There you can see the shooting script. The whole France part started with Gustav arriving at the festival, meeting his agent, going up to the place where the directors, they have a drink. And then he would see Elle Fanning from a distance, and his agent would tell the whole story that I just told you about her. He would go down to his screening room. He would have a free Q&A before the film. So this was a whole big section. And then he sits down and the light goes off, and then she suddenly enters the screening room, and he looks back and says, "Oh, that's the actress we were just talking about." And then later he's invited for the dinner at the restaurant. Then the restaurant scene originally was meant to be a scene where they fall professionally more in love with each other, where they talk about each other's work. And so the dinner scene was much bigger. But we just found out that all those words between them didn't have the same emotional impact as the whole section on the beach. Between those two, in the script version, for sure, the restaurant was where they really fell in love with each other professionally, and then the beach part would be where this could flourish and be the place where we would understand that he would maybe call her later. But it didn't work out in the edit. I can't tell you exactly why. It can also be the performances that weren't on point on that day, or the actors that looked at it in a different way and saw other scenes more important. There's a million things that it's not that anything was bad, but it's just it felt so much stronger on the beach. So the restaurant scene was cut down to just hello, how was your screening? Let's go to the beach, and then the whole scene is there. So those are the things that went out.
I wanted to ask you about the motivations of Stellan, or what you think they are in those moments, because I remember watching it and feeling is this an old dog seeing an opportunity in this actress, or is this two open-hearted artists who are authentically connecting? And maybe it's a little bit of both, meaning Elle Fanning and Stellan. But I was curious what you thought the motivation there was as they sort of fall in love professionally.
I think the way it is now is that Stellan is still hoping for his project to be able to come alive, that his film, even though he has now been rejected by his daughter. So there's still hope for it to happen. in the original version, I think he had lost much more hope in it to work. When he came, he had one slap in the face after the other in the festival, and by the time that he met Elle Fanning, he had almost given up. But all that now being out, we are more towards him being not 100% sure that it's going to happen. We don't know exactly how this is going to be, but you have the feeling throughout the whole film that he should have worked with his daughter from the beginning. That's what he wants. And
Right.
And when Elle Fanning shows up in Norway, she does a wonderful performance when she reads the script, and it's very emotional, very strong. But when you compare that to the way Nora is reading it at the end, you know that she had been the right character for the film all the way through. So for Stellan, it was it was definitely a compromise, but a compromise that he would want to take in order to make his film happen.
You know, as someone my father was a film producer, and this film resonated with me on a personal level because there were moments where you recognize the artist surpasses the father. The desires of the artist override sometimes the instincts of the father, right? That like his greatest passion is to like make this work of art that is probably brilliant, and that he feels that his daughter should be in because he knows that she will be brilliant in it. And so that for me became like one of those tension questions that you guys handled beautifully. I never knew where I landed on it. I think it ends up being such a like great tale where the daughter ends up being in the film, and it kind of is like a happy ending in a way. But for someone who grew up with a father who was all about great artists and like the pursuit of great art, it felt like I couldn't tell what his motivation was. Was it about reconnecting with his daughter, or was it really about pursuing great art? And I wondered if you just had an opinion on that. And that might be just me.
No, it's super interesting. It's super interesting. I think that first of all, he wants to reconnect with his daughter, but then he has written a script that is very important to him and is very important in the analysis of his relationship to his daughter as well. He's just socially and family ungifted to speak outside of a art film context. That's why he doesn't have the relationship to his daughters, because he isn't able to sit down and verbally talk to them and be with them. And as we know, I mean, all big directors, they will want to make their film work at any cost, and they're not in the game just to make other people happy. They can also do that, but they want to make their film come through.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of many different things. He wants to see the film because it's important for him in his analysis of his life and relationship to his daughter. Now his daughter doesn't want to play in it, so he's going to make it happen one way or the other. Now he finds another actress, and even though he might not be 100% convinced that she's the best actress, okay, what the hell? Let's do it anyway. That's how great artists also work.
I think that part of the brilliance of the script is there is obviously such a self-awareness on Joachim's part. You know, the introduction of the grandson and the Agnes, the sister. To me, Agnes is like a little bit of the moral compass, right? She's sort of like gotten out of this like crazy artist world and decided to create her own family that feels very stable, and she puts the needs of her son first. And so I love that conflict, you know, between Stellan and Agnes being like, well, of course he should be in the movie. He's perfect for the movie, and her desire to protect him. And so I just thought it was sort of a great debate between art and familial bonds and like what is more important.
Yeah, and I fully agree. There's also a romantic analysis of artists being tormented souls. And from the outside, people would say, oh, Nora is so super interesting. She's an actress, and she's funny, she's playful, she can have many lovers at the same time, and she's having an exciting life. And Agnes is boring with her son and her family and her husband that is boring. But she probably is. She's probably the one that is most happy because she has a stable family life, and Nora is the one that is unhappy. Like, she's constantly jumping from relationship to relationship and suffering from the never have come to terms or discussed properly what the problems in the relationship to her father is.
Yeah.
So from the outside, she's the amazing one, but on the inside, she's the one that suffers the most, probably.
Completely. I sort of felt like the moral at the end felt like kind of storybook ending in that art and family collided. And that was such a lovely end, right? It was like, well, you can't
Yes.
all, you know?
and one can hope that art is the language in which they articulate themselves and articulate the feelings. And we can show that both Nora and the father are not able to have completely working social interaction with other people, but they do it through the art. So all we can hope, us that can now see this from the outside and say that it's better to have a more balanced life, we can hope that they have now reunited through art, through his film. But hopefully in the future, I hope at least that their relationship will be much more than just a director and an artist, that this is now an opening for a new life between them. Because the script shows that Gustav might actually have seen much more of Nora's character in real life, because she gets convinced, she suddenly gets surprised that this is just not another meaningless script, but this is actually a script that is about her life. So maybe he has understood more of her, even though he was away from her.
Det vanskelig å forklare. Jeg vet ikke hvem jeg var til. Men jeg sa bare, hjelp meg. Jeg får ikke til dette her. Jeg klarer det ikke alene. Jeg vil ha et hjem. Jeg vil ha et hjem.
Not every sale happens at the register. Before AT&T Business Wireless, checking out customers on our mobile POS systems took too long. Basically a staring contest where everyone loses. It's crazy what people will say during an awkward silence. Now transactions are done before the silence takes hold. That means I can focus on the task at hand and make an extra sale or two. Sometimes I do miss the bonding time. Sometimes.
AT&T Business Wireless. Connecting changes everything.
Mange år senere, da han jobbet med å lage film, likte Gustav å si «Skuggor er det vakreste i verden». Og da så han for seg huset som han hadde bodd i som barn.
I want to talk a little bit about the house and the character of the house and how you handle it and how you observe it. You know, it's obviously such a like critical through line. I also feel like it's such a mooring component of the film. No matter what happens, the house was there, right? Even in all its like structural deformities, it was something that like kind of moored the daughters and that ultimately the father comes back to. Did you and Joachim talk about it at all? Did you just sort of like have a clear sense of how you were going to handle it? Was it just like taking it straight from the script?
We don't talk super much before I start editing the film, but we talk a lot during the edit when the scenes are in front of me. And he talked about that with other people, set designer before. But absolutely, the house is more than just a stage of where the play takes place. It's the soul of the family. I had the same house I just inherited from my mom a couple of years ago, which is a house that my grandfather built back. This house is older though, but my grandfather built the house back in the 60s. And my whole family has gone through there, everything. I look at an apple tree over there. I know that's what my grandfather planted in the 90s. I look at the rhododendron over there. I know that's my grandmother put them in the early 60s. And the house is this. And then on top of that, there is a trauma. There's a trauma that has hit this family, which is the war and the mother being tortured and taken away by the Nazis. And this, of course, is a special story. But I discussed it with the script writer because we often hear that, okay, this is a story where the trauma of the Second World War is like passed down through the house, which it is in a way, but it's not that. I wouldn't say that we don't hear about the war through the film. It's not that the war, we hear when they try to find out what has happened to the grandmother, then yes, and why she might have committed suicide. But it's not that it's discussed. It's not like how you can have in other type of families, in Jewish families, you can have an awareness that the grandparents died in the concentration camps, and then that will be formulated generation after generation. That's not fully the case in this film. We're more dealing with, let's say, if you take a stone and you throw it into the water, we're not so much interested in the splash of the stone in the water. We're more interested in the ripples that comes out of that trauma. So yes, the trauma is about the war, but the psychological trauma that hits Gustav is because his mother died, and her reasoning for committing suicide could have been many others than the Second World War. And then the ripples of the trauma would still be in there. So the war is not as such a theme in there, but the house is, because the house is the bearer of this whole family pain and the ripples that has gone through this house. People often say to me, who is the voiceover in this in the film? Who is the voice? Is it Nora? And I say, honestly, I don't know who it is. Some people think that it's the grandmother talking. Some people think it could be Nora as old because she also knows about the future. But some people say it's the house. And for me, all of those answers are correct.
I love that so much.
And technically, how we cut the house in the first montage and later on, if you notice, just small details, but it all adds up to it being more of a character. We try to cut to the house before the people enter the frame and try to leave it as empty after the people have left, so that instead of cutting on the action from the people from scene to scene, it's more like it's a little clunkier, a little heavier, just to have the frame empty, and then they get in and then they exit again. But it just makes you feel that the house is witnessing the movement of the people going through.
I love that. So that was a very intentional thing probably throughout the entire edit.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, that's so brilliant. And is that something you discovered in the edit, that language, or did you always sort of know that that's something you wanted to do?
No, because I didn't know the material before I started. And this is something Casper, the DOP, is making on privately. He's making a film about his own family that he has been shooting for the last 10 years. And he used this trick of, instead of filming the people in the house, sometimes he films them out of the window. And then you see them, he has one window, then they come, they pass, then he cuts to the next window, they enter in the next frame. And that idea Joachim got inspired from and put it in here. And then when he told me, let's try to do it like that so that we have the frame empty, then that became a language that moved into the other scenes as well. So we have several shots that are just empty frames, and then you hear sound outside the frame. And a lot of sound. Sometimes you hear like a whole dinner party, but you see the living room, and then you see another room, and then you hear the kids playing. So you are sort of in the wrong place. You should be seeing the dinner party. You should be seeing the kids playing. But the house experiences like that because that's just a big monument, and then it feels the humans outside of where you are right now.
I wonder what you feel the significance is then of the house being built on a stage at the end of the film. Like, is there like a tale to that sort of metaphor throughout, that like they are now reinventing the house on a movie lot somewhere?
I mean, the good thing, I think, for Gustav's and for the family's chances of moving on from the trauma that they are in is that they sell the house and move on. I know that that's probably hard, and that's why we see the house. So technically they don't have the house anymore, and now it has become this good-looking, boring, soulless house with the fancy furniture that is completely anonymous. It looks like a 4-star hotel at the end.
That's right. That's like the emotional divorce from the trauma, even though the house was such a strong and impactful thing. I love that.
And then so he has to, as he still wants, there's some time passing from that because you see Gustav giving up, after Elle Fanning's character had left. He gets drunk and he looks hateful into the room where his mom hung herself. So it's like he's looking at that damned room, that cursed room that is taking away all his power to make the film and to reunite with his daughters. So when that is sold, then he's able to do it. And then it's logic that he has to build a stage instead, because now it's a thing outside of him. That's how sometimes art also has to be. It comes from a point inside, but you're still making it for an audience. So you still have to show your piece of art at some point to some people. So you have to externalize it. And I see that movement in him making that stage. And now it has become like a space for both of them where they can meet in the play, in the film, and not be his emotional space where his mom died and everything is so complicated. It's a more clean canvas that they can both paint on.
I guess my next thing is like you go and shape this thing in a dark room with your compatriot, your filmmaker, and then you send it out into the world. And then once in a blue moon, this happens, right? The world completely embraces this, compared to some movies, this small character film. And it just is like so baffling when these things happen. And I always have more faith in people's ability to identify great art when things like this happen, because there are times where we're convinced that AI is taking over everything and that, creativity doesn't matter. And then something like this happens. And so have you participated in any of this sort of excitement?
Yeah, I've been in the US a couple of times, and I think it's I think it's amazing, this whole thing that is happening for the film. I try to stay a little bit distant to it, not distance, but this too shall pass. So both the ups and the downs, both the pain when you lose somebody and the starlight coming on you when you are in this situation. This too shall pass. There will be a normal day on the other side. So don't lose yourself in the pain. Don't lose yourself in the glamorous. But I enjoy it very much. But I know that I just have to keep myself in it as well.
Well, honestly, this has been a joy. And I'm working on a film myself right now, and it's so incredibly stressful. But this has been like such a joyful, conversation with you, Olivier, and just understanding the process. Your perception of the story has been it reminds me why we do this.
Nice.
I can't thank you enough. It's been truly an exceptional interview and conversation, and I really wish you all the best in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is it just me? It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for you either, does it? Me doing this film?
Of course it does.
I don't think it does.
Knock, knock.
Ooh, who's there?
A Boost Mobile expert, here to deliver and set up your all-new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever.
You call that a knock-knock joke?
This isn't a joke. Boost Mobile really sends experts to deliver and set up your phone at home or work.
Okay, well, it's just that when people say knock-knock, there's usually a joke to go with it.
Like I said, this isn't a joke.
So the knock-knock was just you knocking?
Yeah, that's how doors work.
Get the new iPhone 17 Pro delivered and set up by an expert wherever you are. Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com. Terms apply.
Pluto TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
This is the mindset.
Like Joe Dirt, Pixels, Survivor, and SpongeBob SquarePants.
Free. This is the mindset.
You're welcome.
Pluto TV, stream now, pay never.
So Vanessa, I think the more we talk to these great filmmakers and department heads, the more you realize that great filmmakers are really a sum of the talented people around them and the squads that they develop over time. And Olivier and Joachim obviously went to school together, grew up together, had a real love of film together. And it's, they've obviously done every film together, and you realize how critical that is in the development of a great filmmaker, right? Like you attribute it all to Joachim, like what an incredible visionary he is, but obviously he's like assembled this incredibly talented group around him to help him realize his vision. I was so struck with that,
And I think even like being in production and listening to these episodes and these interviews, it kind of puts that into focus so much more that the director can't do everything, they can only do so much, right? They can try and lead a team, but having these really incredible other visionaries kind of come in to pull the picture together and do something that maybe you hadn't imagined before or couldn't, like the director couldn't visualize and take it to the next level. I think it's part of what makes these movies so great. It's just having that collaboration.
100%. And, I would say like this movie isn't like Dune, like our Dune episode was so incredible because it was just like, that's like creating a massive company, right? Like Dune there's so many layers, there's so many departments, they're humongous. There's like probably, hundreds upon hundreds of people working on that movie. And this one obviously feels a little bit more intimate, but no less complex in its storytelling, right? It's just like got different tools. And I sort of was struck by this thing that Olivier talked about, which is like the house being a witness to the story. And I love that so much. And then he sort of talked about the development of this like notion of like the characters would like enter a scene and leave a scene, and he would like leave the frame on the house before he would cut to the next scene. And it wasn't something that I really like realized while I was watching it, but as he talked about it, I was like, oh, what a brilliant framework. And I definitely noticed that. I wasn't aware, I wasn't fully cognizant of like those little subtleties that like kind of elevate this kind of movie and the storytelling of it. So I just think it was so brilliant. That
is so brilliant,
isn't it? So
yeah, it's stuff that also is so like, as an audience, we didn't need to know that piece of information, but you can feel it in the soul of the movie. So it's when filmmakers are being intentional like that, just takes the movie to such a different level. It's really amazing.
And I think I have to like go rewatch the movie again because I really enjoyed it. Like Joachim is just known for like these great complex characters that have like full lives. Like all of the ensemble felt that way. But I really, as I talked to Olivier, it really struck me that this movie really was about like this struggle between art and family and like art and personal relationships and like what your responsibility is to one or the other. And I think like upon watching, I'm going to have to go back and watch it again because as we've discussed, this is like story of my family. So anyways, I just was like, so love that conversation. That was a great one.
No, this was such a good one. And I kind of agree with what you were saying before, that talking to Joe Walker, who made Dune, it's such a different scale and scope of work, but ultimately it is the same thing. So, it doesn't matter what level you're working on. If you're trying to get like CGI, sandworms in the movie, like
totally.
You're ultimately trying to, it's the same, it's not the same amount of work, but it's the same kind of thinking that kind of builds that similar work ethic. It's really interesting. I feel like Joachim is just so good at these like family dynamics, and you don't realize how difficult that is to convey and make interesting on camera because it is so simple, and simple is really hard.
Simple is so hard, especially when you don't have sandworms, like in this an age. And like, you think about the themes of Dune and the themes of this movie in a funny way, it's about family, right? Like it's about legacy and family and what one generation's passing on to the next. And even Joe Walker sort of said that, like the movie doesn't work unless you have that personal connection to the characters. And so in a funny way, they are not as different as like, I sort of initially thought, but what a brilliant guy. That was fun.
And Olivier, he also edited The Worst Person in the World, which is a movie that it's so funny. On first watch, I was like, wow, that was so brilliant. That was amazing. And I've since rewatched that movie so many times, and I highly recommend people do. And I think Sentimental Value will kind of live in the same space where it's like every single time you watch that movie, you love it so much more because of how much it's doing. And you don't even realize it on the first watch because like we're saying, it just seems so simple, but both of those movies are really just such layered, complex, smart storytelling.
Totally. And it was like, you know, I tried to get Olivier to sort of talk about the trajectory, because these guys have been working together for 20 years, you know, and for whatever, these last two movies have been the ones that really sort of penetrate, you know, the American market. And he couldn't really identify why, but it's just so interesting that he's been there the whole time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we go back and rewatch some of his earlier movies, we'd be able to relate to them just as much. But I think when a filmmaker is working so, you know, to really hone their craft for so long, you kind of get to the point where there's, you know, it's undeniable when a story's really good and a movie's really good, it, you know, it supersedes language. It's
totally. And it also makes me like feel heartened about the power of a emotional movie, you know, like it's a sort of quiet film with really interesting characters, and that's about it. There's no like, you know, there's no bells and whistles, like
set pieces or explosions.
Script in a, you know, like a cool house set piece. But I was like, you know, people still want to see these movies that if they're done really well. So
yeah, they can be really comforting. I still love them. So.
Well, let's wish him the best of luck in his Oscar campaign here, and we're coming up on the Oscars in a couple weeks, and so and he's a nominee, so that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, guys, follow us on Instagram at Hollywood Gold Pod. Go to our website to get some merch, staygoldfeatures.com, and hit the merch tab. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We also have a YouTube page. If you haven't checked it out yet, go and subscribe. We have some really good content from the episodes. So thanks, everyone.
Okay. Love you guys. Stay gold.
Stay gold.